Special permission, as defined in the National Electrical Code Section 100.1, refers to the written consent of the authority having jurisdiction, often abbreviated AHJ. This provision allows for deviations from standard code requirements in specific circumstances, provided that the AHJ determines that such deviations do not compromise safety. Several examples illustrate situations where special permission might be granted. Firstly, consider the installation of temporary wiring for a construction site. The National Electrical Code generally outlines stringent requirements for wiring methods and materials. However, in the context of a construction site, these requirements may be impractical or impossible to meet due to the temporary nature of the installation. The authority having jurisdiction may grant special permission to install temporary wiring that does not strictly adhere to the normal National Electrical Code requirements, provided that certain safety precautions are taken. These precautions might include the use of properly insulated conductors, secure mounting of wiring, and regular inspections to identify and address any potential hazards. Secondly, the use of non-metallic sheathed cable, often called NM cable, in exposed locations presents another scenario where special permission may be relevant. The National Electrical Code typically prohibits the use of NM cable in exposed locations primarily because it is susceptible to physical damage. However, special permission may be granted in specific cases, such as when the NM cable is run within a conduit or otherwise protected from physical damage. The authority having jurisdiction would assess the specific installation to determine whether the level of protection is adequate to ensure safety. Factors considered might include the type and location of the conduit, the likelihood of physical impact, and the overall environmental conditions. Thirdly, consider the installation of a generator in a residential area. Noise level restrictions are often imposed to maintain neighborhood quality of life. These restrictions can be quite stringent and may prevent generator installations from meeting the noise level requirement. The authority having jurisdiction may grant special permission to install a generator in a residential area, even though it may not fully comply with noise level requirements, if it is determined that the generator is necessary for the safety of the occupants. This determination might be made in situations where the generator provides backup power for essential medical equipment or other critical life support systems. In such cases, the AHJ would weigh the potential impact of the noise against the potential risks of power outages. Fourthly, modifications to a circuit breaker panel often require special permission. The National Electrical Code mandates specific installation methods for circuit breaker panels to ensure safety and proper operation. However, situations may arise where modifications to the panel are necessary to accommodate the installation of new circuits or equipment. Special permission may be granted to modify the panel if it is determined that the modifications will not compromise the panel's integrity or safety. Any such modifications must be performed by qualified personnel and inspected by the authority having jurisdiction to ensure compliance with applicable safety standards. Fifthly, the installation of electrical equipment in hazardous locations is subject to stringent requirements outlined in the National Electrical Code. These requirements are designed to prevent explosions and other hazards that can arise in environments where flammable gases, vapors, or dusts are present. However, special permission may be granted to install equipment that does not fully meet these requirements, provided that equivalent safety measures are taken. For example, if equipment that is not specifically rated for a hazardous location is used, additional measures such as explosion-proof enclosures or intrinsically safe circuits may be required to mitigate the risk of ignition. The authority having jurisdiction would carefully evaluate the proposed installation to ensure that the level of safety is equivalent to that achieved by using equipment that is fully compliant with the National Electrical Code requirements for hazardous locations. The process of obtaining special permission typically involves submitting a detailed proposal to the authority having jurisdiction, outlining the specific deviation from the National Electrical Code requirements, the rationale for the deviation, and the measures that will be taken to ensure safety. The authority having jurisdiction will review the proposal and may request additional information or clarification before making a decision. If special permission is granted, it is typically subject to specific conditions and limitations which must be strictly followed to maintain compliance. It's important to recognize that special permission is not a blanket exemption from the National Electrical Code requirements. It is a process that allows for flexibility in specific circumstances, while still ensuring that electrical installations are safe and reliable. The authority having jurisdiction plays a critical role in this process, carefully evaluating each request for special permission and ensuring that any deviations from the National Electrical Code are justified and do not compromise safety. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, serves as the cornerstone for safe electrical installations. However, its rigid adherence isn't always feasible or practical in every situation. This is where the concept of special permission steps in, offering a pathway to deviate from standard code requirements under strict supervision and approval from the authority having jurisdiction, or AHJ. The AHJ could be a local building inspector, a fire marshal, or any other designated authority responsible for enforcing electrical codes in a specific region. The special permission clause isn't a loophole to circumvent safety regulations, but rather a mechanism to address unique circumstances and innovative solutions that might not be explicitly covered in the code. It acknowledges that the electrical field is constantly evolving, and that a one-size-fits-all approach isn't always the most effective or safe. Let's consider some real-world examples where special permission might be sought and granted. Temporary wiring on construction sites. Construction sites are dynamic environments, with electrical needs changing rapidly as the project progresses. Running permanent wiring for temporary power needs is often impractical and costly. Therefore, the AHJ might grant special permission for temporary wiring installations that don't fully comply with standard NEC requirements, provided that certain safety measures are in place. These measures could include using heavy-duty extension cords, elevated supports to prevent damage, and regular inspections to identify and rectify any potential hazards. The AHJ would carefully evaluate the proposed temporary wiring plan, taking into account the duration of the project, the potential risks involved, and the safety measures implemented. Use of non-metallic sheathed cable, or NM cable, in exposed locations. NM cable, commonly known as Romex, is widely used in residential wiring due to its cost-effectiveness and ease of installation. However, the NEC generally prohibits its use in exposed locations where it's susceptible to physical damage. In certain situations, however, the AHJ might grant special permission for exposed NM cable runs if adequate protection is provided. This could involve enclosing the cable in conduit, running it through a protected chase, or using other means to shield it from potential impacts. The AHJ would assess the specific installation to determine whether the level of protection is sufficient to prevent damage to the cable and ensure electrical safety. Generator installation in residential areas. Backup generators provide essential power during outages, but they can also generate noise and emissions that can be disruptive to neighbors. Local ordinances often impose noise level restrictions on generators, which can make it difficult to comply with regulations. In cases where a generator is deemed necessary for critical needs such as powering medical equipment or maintaining essential life support systems, the AHJ might grant special permission to exceed noise level limits, provided that mitigation measures are implemented. These measures could include soundproofing enclosures, strategic placement of the generator, and community outreach to address concerns. The AHJ would carefully weigh the benefits of backup power against the potential impact on the surrounding community. Modification of circuit breaker panels. Circuit breaker panels are designed and installed according to strict NEC guidelines to ensure safety and proper operation. However, situations may arise where modifications to the panel are necessary, such as adding new circuits or accommodating larger breakers. While the NEC generally discourages modifications that deviate from the original design, the AHJ might grant special permission for alterations if they are performed by qualified electricians and meet certain safety standards. This could involve using UL-listed components, maintaining proper wire bending space, and ensuring that the panel's overall capacity isn't exceeded. The AHJ would thoroughly inspect the modified panel to verify compliance with applicable codes and standards. Electrical equipment in hazardous locations. Hazardous locations, such as chemical plants and oil refineries, pose a high risk of explosions and fires due to the presence of flammable gases, vapors, or dust. The NEC has stringent requirements for electrical equipment used in these locations, mandating explosion-proof enclosures and other safety features. In some cases, however, it may be impractical or impossible to use equipment that fully complies with these requirements. The AHJ might grant special permission for alternative solutions provided that equivalent levels of safety are achieved. This could involve using intrinsically safe circuits, purging and pressurization systems, or other methods to prevent ignition. The AHJ would conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to ensure that the proposed installation adequately mitigates the hazards present. So how do you go about obtaining special permission? Firstly, you need to thoroughly understand the specific NEC requirements that you're seeking to deviate from. Secondly, document the reasons why compliance with the standard requirements is impractical or impossible in your situation. Thirdly, develop a detailed proposal outlining your alternative solution and the safety measures you'll implement. Fourthly, submit your proposal to the authority having jurisdiction, providing all necessary documentation and justification. Fifthly, be prepared to answer questions, provide additional information, and make revisions to your proposal as requested. Sixthly, obtain written approval from the AHJ before commencing any work that deviates from the standard NEC requirements. Remember, special permission is not a right, but rather a privilege granted at the discretion of the AHJ. It's essential to approach the process with professionalism, transparency, and a strong commitment to safety. By demonstrating a thorough understanding of the code, a well-reasoned justification for your proposed deviation, and a comprehensive plan for mitigating potential risks, you'll increase your chances of obtaining the special permission you need to complete your project safely and successfully. The overarching goal is to ensure electrical safety, while also allowing for innovation and adaptation to unique circumstances. The AHJ serves as the gatekeeper, carefully evaluating each request for special permission to strike a balance between these competing interests. By working collaboratively with the AHJ, electrical professionals can navigate the complexities of the NEC and find creative solutions that meet both the code's intent and the project's specific needs. Special permission is an important tool for maintaining flexibility and promoting innovation in the electrical industry, while also upholding the highest standards of safety. It requires careful consideration, thorough planning, and open communication between electrical professionals and the authority having jurisdiction.